The Wednesday afternoon sun cast long shadows through the windows of Bittersweet Cafe as Ethan Morgan squinted at his laptop screen. Lines of code scrolled endlessly as he debugged the software that had consumed his life for the past 3 months. His coffee black with 1 sugar had gone cold, forgotten beside his keyboard as he lost himself in the digital world he understood better than the real one. Bittersweet was Ethan's sanctuary, his Wednesday ritual as consistent as the cafe's vintage clock that ran precisely for minutes fast. He always chose the corner table beside the bookshelf, always arrived at 2:30 p.m., and always ordered the same drink from Delia, the barista who no longer needed to ask for his order. Just once, "I wish you'd try something different," Delia had teased earlier, sliding his usual across the counter. "We have 26 different drinks, you know." Ethan had smiled politely, offering his standard response, "Why mess with perfection?" That was Ethan's life, philosophy, structured, predictable, safe. At 32, he had crafted a comfortable existence around routines that sheltered him from life's unpredictability. His apartment was minimalist and organized. His work as a remote developer for a cybersecurity firm allowed him to control his environment. Even his social life operated on a schedule: Thursday dinners with his sister, Sunday calls with his parents, monthly game nights with college friends. He was typing furiously when the cafe door chimed. Ethan didn't look up. Another part of his routine was ignoring the flow of customers that ebbed and flowed around him. But something changed in the atmosphere. A subtle shift that pulled at his awareness despite his concentration. The newcomer moved through the space with purposeful strides, her presence somehow altering the cafe's usual rhythm. When she ordered, her voice carried a melodic quality that cut through the ambient noise,
Yes.
causing Ethan to glance up involuntarily. She wasn't conventionally beautiful, but striking in a way that commanded attention. Her auburn hair was cut in an asymmetrical style that framed sharp cheekbones. She wore a leather jacket over a simple white t-shirt, with camera equipment hanging from her shoulder. There was something in her stance, confident but watchful, that suggested she was accustomed to observing rather than being observed. Ethan forced his attention back to his screen, but his concentration had fractured. He found himself making careless errors, backspacing more than typing. Every few minutes, his eyes drifted to where she sat by the window, her camera occasionally raised to capture something that caught her interest. An hour passed this way, with Ethan pretending to work while increasingly aware of her presence. She moved around the cafe, sometimes taking photos of the steam rising from coffee cups, sometimes the light patterns on the wooden floor. Once, he thought her lens pointed briefly in his direction, but he quickly looked away, heat rising to his face. At 4:15 p.m., Ethan saved his work and began packing up 15 minutes earlier than his usual departure time. His productivity was shot, and he figured he might as well head home. As he closed his laptop, he noticed the woman approaching, camera now hanging at her side. "Excuse me," she said, stopping at his table. Up close, her eyes were an unusual shade of amber, intense and evaluating. "I hope this isn't strange, but I noticed you've been working here for hours." Ethan hesitated, his social awkwardness surfacing. Yes. I come here often to work." "I'm Naomi," she said, extending her hand. "Naomi Winters. I'm doing a photography series on modern work culture and sacred spaces. The way you were so absorbed in your corner, it was like watching someone in a different dimension." Her handshake was firm, her palm cool against his. "Ethan Morgan," he replied automatically. "Would you mind if I used some of the photos I took of you? Your silhouette against the window created this beautiful contrast that perfectly captures what I'm exploring in my project." "You ... took photos of me?" Ethan felt a strange mix of discomfort and intrigue. Naomi smiled, not apologetically, but with genuine enthusiasm. "Don't worry, they're artistic, not invasive. Here, look." She turned her camera to show him the display. The image she'd captured showed Ethan in profile, his face illuminated by the blue glow of his laptop, the warm cafe lights creating a halo effect around him. In the photo, he looked both intensely focused and oddly isolated, a man, surrounded by life, but separated from it by an invisible barrier. "Is that really how I look?" he asked quietly, unsettled by the vulnerability the image revealed. Naomi studied him with a curious tilt of her head. Everyone looks different when they don't know they're being watched. That's when you see the person beneath the persona. She paused. So, may I use the photos? Something about her directness, the way she seemed to see right through him, made Ethan pause. This wasn't part of his routine. This wasn't predictable or safe. But as he looked at her expectant expression, he found himself nodding. Yes, he said, surprising himself. You can use them. Naomi's smile widened, transforming her face. Perfect. In fact, I'd like to talk more about your perspective for the project. Are you free tomorrow? Just like that, Ethan's carefully structured world began to tilt on its axis. Ethan arrived at Bittersweet Calf the next day, 15 minutes early. A disruption to his routine that left him fidgeting in his seat. He'd changed his shirt 3 times before leaving his apartment, settling on a navy button-down that his sister once said brought out his eyes, and now sat wondering why he'd put so much thought into meeting a stranger. When Naomi entered, she spotted him immediately and headed to his table with purpose. Today she wore a faded jean jacket covered in small embroidered patches, her camera still slung across her body like an extension of herself. You actually came, she said, sliding into the seat across from him. I wasn't entirely sure you would. I always keep my appointments, Ethan replied, not adding that he rarely made spontaneous ones. Naomi smiled. Of course you do. She pulled out a leather-bound portfolio and placed it on the table. So, my project is called Digital Monks. It explores how modern workers create ritual spaces in public places the way medieval monks once did in monasteries. As she flipped through the portfolio, Ethan was struck by the photographs. Each captured people in coffee shops, libraries, and parks, all intensely focused on laptops or tablets. Surrounded by the trappings of their makeshift offices, headphones, water bottles, notebooks. In every image there was a strange isolation, amid the crowded spaces. You've been watching all these people? He asked. I observed, she corrected. There's a difference. I'm not interested in invading privacy. I'm interested in what these patterns say about how we live now. She turned to a blank page. But I want more than just images. I want the stories behind them. She pulled out a recorder. Would you mind telling me about your routine? Why here? Why every Wednesday? What are you working on that absorbs you so completely? Ethan hesitated. His work involves security systems, not exactly conversation material for strangers. I'm not sure what you're looking for. Honesty, Naomi said simply. The real story behind the image. Something in her directness disarmed him, if he found himself talking about his job, his preference for routine, the predictable background noise of the cafe helped him focus better than the silence of his apartment. As he spoke, Naomi occasionally made notes or asked questions that probed deeper than he expected. What are you protecting yourself from with all these routines? She asked at one point. The question caught him off guard. I'm not protecting myself. I'm just efficient. She hummed, unconvinced. Most fortresses are built for a reason. After an hour of conversation, she closed her notebook. I have a challenge for you, Ethan Morgan. A challenge? He echoed, wary. Yes. Tomorrow, I want you to work somewhere you've never been before. No bittersweet, no familiar corner. Find a new place. Order something you've never tried, and see what happens. To your code when you're not in your comfort zone? Ethan frowned. That would completely disrupt my productivity. Exactly, she said, leaning forward. What if disruption is exactly what you need? I don't need disruption, he countered. My system works. Naomi's expression softened slightly. Does it, though? When I look at those photos I took of you yesterday, I see someone who's built a perfect little box to exist in. But boxes, no matter how comfortable, are still boxes. Her words struck deeper than he wanted to admit.
Dad, what do you get out
Of this experiment, a before and after shot, a digital monk in his familiar monastery, and then the same monk in the wilderness. She grinned. Plus, you'll text me where you end up, and I'll come document it. You're assuming I'll do this. Naomi stood, gathering her things. I am, 'cause, despite all your routines, Ethan, I think you're curious about what might happen. If you broke just one, She pulled a business card from her pocket and placed it on the table. "Text me tomorrow, unless, of course, you're afraid of a little unpredictability." As she walked away, Ethan picked up the card. It was simple, just her name, phone number, and website. He turned it over to find a handwritten note. "Comfort zones are beautiful prisons." He slipped the card into his wallet, telling himself he wouldn't use it. But that night, as he scrolled through his work emails, he found himself opening his browser and typing in her website address instead. Her photography portfolio was stunning, stark urban landscapes, intimate portraits of strangers, and series after series exploring the boundaries between public and private spaces. Her bio was brief. "Naomi Winters documents the invisible walls we build around ourselves. Former photojournalist, current observer of human architecture." Ethan closed his laptop, Naomi's challenge echoing in his mind. For the first time in years, his Wednesday routine suddenly felt less like comfort and more like constraint. The next morning, Ethan stood outside Hollow Grounds, a small cafe in a neighborhood he rarely visited. Through the window, he could see mismatched furniture, local art on the walls, and not a single predictable thing. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the door. Inside the cafe, smelled of cardamom and something woodsy he couldn't identify. Instead of the soft jazz he was accustomed to at Bittersweet, a folk singer's voice filled the space. He ordered at the barista's recommendations, something called a midnight mocha, found a wobbly table near a window overlooking a small community garden. Before opening his laptop, he texted Naomi the address, half hoping she wouldn't respond. But his phone buzzed almost immediately. Brave choice. Be there in 20. For the next 20 minutes, Ethan tried to work, but everything felt off. The chair was too low, the table rocked whenever he typed, and the mocha, though surprisingly good, was nothing like his usual coffee. He found himself distracted by conversations around him, by the unfamiliar playlist, by the anticipation of Naomi's arrival. When she appeared, camera already in hand, he felt an unexpected surge of relief. She photographed him from the doorway before approaching, capturing his discomfort before he could mask it. "You actually did it," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. Today her hair was pulled back, revealing a small tattoo behind. Her era compass rose. "How does it feel?" "Inefficient," he admitted. "I've accomplished almost nothing." "Sometimes nothing is something," she replied cryptically, raising her camera again. "Don't pose. Just be." For the next hour, Naomi took photos while Ethan attempted to work. Occasionally, she'd ask questions that pulled him away from his code, forcing him to engage with his surroundings. Gradually, he found himself relaxing into the chaos of the new environment. "Tell me about your most unpredictable moment," she asked during a lull. Ethan thought for a moment. "My parents died in a car accident when I was 17. My sister was 14. He surprised himself with the admission. That was unpredictable enough for a lifetime. Naomi lowered her camera, her expression softening. "And you've been building defenses against unpredictability ever since." It wasn't a question, but he nodded anyway. "Structure helps, knowing what comes next." "Except nothing is actually predictable," she said gently. "The routines just create the illusion of control." Her insight unsettled him. "Is that what your photography is about? Exposing illusions?" Something flickered across her face of vulnerability he hadn't seen before. "Maybe I'm trying to understand my own." "What do you mean?" Naomi hesitated, then reached for her phone. She pulled up a web page and passed it to him. The site displayed a series of powerful photographs from war-zone civilians fleeing. Buildings in ruins, a child standing amid destruction. The byline read, "Naomi Winters, Pulitzer Prize finalist." "You were a war photographer," he said, looking up at her with new understanding. "For 8 years," she confirmed. "Afghanistan, Syria, Ukraine. I documented human suffering until I couldn't anymore." She took the phone back, her fingers brushing his. 3 years ago, I was embedded with a humanitarian convoy that was hit. 2 aid workers died. I survived with this." She gestured to a thin scar along her collarbone he hadn't noticed before. "In a severe case of PTSD." Ethan was silent, processing this revelation. The confident, challenging woman before him suddenly had layers he hadn't imagined. So now, she continued, instead of photographing people in war zones, I photograph the invisible battles we fight with ourselves, the walls we build for protection that become our prisons. Like my routines, he said quietly. Like your routines, she agreed. Like my need to keep moving, never staying in one place too long. She smiled ruefully. We all have our fortresses, Ethan. I'm just trying to understand what we lose by hiding inside them. In that moment, looking at Naomi across the wobbly cafe table, Ethan saw her clearly for the first time, not as the disruptive force in his ordered life, but as someone whose experiences had shaped her just as deeply as his had shaped him. Am I me? He asked. Out of all the people you could have photographed, why choose me for this project? Naomi's amber eyes held his. 'Cause when I saw you in that cafe, so completely closed off from everything around you, I recognized myself. Different fortress, same isolation. She paused. And maybe I thought we could both use a window in our walls. As the afternoon light slanted through the cafe windows, casting golden patterns across their table, Ethan realized with startling clarity that his perfectly ordered world had already begun to change. Surprisingly, he wasn't afraid. Over the next week, Ethan's carefully constructed life began to unravel in the catastrophic way he'd always feared, but in small, surprising moments that left him both unsettled and exhilarated. Naomi had asked him to meet her at different locations throughout the city: a bustling public library with soaring ceilings, a quiet botanical garden where birdsong replaced cafe chatter, a noisy food hall where vendors called out orders in multiple languages. Each time she photographed him working in these unfamiliar environments, documenting his gradual adjustment to unpredictability. You're smiling more, she observed on their fourth meeting, this time at a riverside bench where Ethan balanced his laptop on his knees. Your shoulders aren't up around your ears anymore. Maybe I'm just getting used to being your subject, he replied, but they both knew it was more than that. For the first time in years, Ethan found himself looking forward to the unexpected. He tried new foods, took different routes home even, rearranged his apartment furniture on a whim, small changes, but seismic in their implications. Each deviation from routine was like dismantling a brick from the wall he'd built around himself. His work hadn't suffered either. Contrary to his fears, the changing environment seemed to spark new perspectives on problems he'd been stuck on for weeks. His team lead had even commented on his innovative approach to their latest security challenge. Today, they met at a small art gallery Naomi was considering for her exhibition. As they walked among the photograph's stark black and white images of urban isolation, Ethan noticed how Naomi seemed different here. More reserved, her confident stride replaced by a contemplative pace. These remind me of your war photography, he said quietly, stopping before an image of an elderly man alone on a park bench, surrounded by empty space, despite the crowded park around him. Same theme, different battlefield, she replied. Exhibition opens in 3 weeks. My first since. She didn't finish the sentence. Since you came back, Ethan completed for her. Over their meetings, she'd shared more about her experiences, the nightmares that still woke her, the crowds she still avoided, the loud noises that could transport her back to moments she'd spent years trying to forget. My agent thinks this series could reestablish my career, she said, moving to the next photograph. Gallery owners from New York are coming. You'll leave, Ethan concluded, feeling a hollow sensation form in his chest. Naomi turned to him, her expression complex. I've been offered a residency program, 6 months documenting community rebuilding efforts in formerly war-torn areas. Non-combat zones, she added quickly, seeing his concern, would be a way back into the work that matters to me, without the trauma. That sounds like an amazing opportunity, Ethan said, meaning it despite the disappointment settling inside. Him? When would you go? 2 weeks after the exhibition? If I accept? She looked at him directly now. I haven't decided yet. The implication hung between them that her decision might somehow involve him, that these weeks of breaking down walls had built something neither had anticipated. What's holding you back? He asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Instead of responding, Naomi pulled out her camera and showed him the display screen. It was a series of images Ethan, on their first meeting, tense, and closed off. Then subsequent photos showing his gradual transformation. The final image taken just days ago captured him laughing as wind scattered his papers, his face open and alive in a way that startled him. "This is what's holding me back," she said softly. "Watching someone find their way out of their fortress makes me wonder about finding my way back to something instead of always running toward the next conflict zone." Ethan studied the images, seeing himself through her lens, the before and after of a man who'd begun to live again. "So what happens now?" he asked. "That depends," Naomi said, putting her camera away. "I have one more challenge for you." Ethan smiled, the anticipation of her challenges now familiar territory. "I'm listening. Come to the exhibition opening. Wear something that isn't navy blue or gray. Bring someone important to you, your sister, maybe." She paused. "And before then, make one big change to your life. Not a small one, something that scares you." "And if I do all that?" Naomi's eyes held his. "Then I'll know whether I should stay or go." As they stood there, surrounded by images of human isolation, Ethan realized he faced the most significant decision since his parents' death. Continue dismantling the walls he'd built for protection, risking the pain that unpredictability could bring, or retreat to the safety of routine, knowing what it would cost him. "I'll be there," he said finally. "Free and scared out of my mind." "Probably." Her smile was worth the promise. "Good. Fear means you're paying attention." As they left the gallery, walking side by side through streets Ethan would have avoided just weeks ago, he understood that whatever safety he'd found in routine paled in comparison to the aliveness he felt now, standing at the edge of uncertainty with someone who understood both the danger and the necessity of taking the leap. The night of Naomi's exhibition arrived with unexpected snow-delicate flakes that transformed the city into something ethereal and unfamiliar. Ethan stood before his closet, his sister Vanessa perched on his bed, offering unsolicited fashion advice. "Not the burgundy," she said, vetoing another shirt. "To corporate." "There's nothing left," Ethan protested, gesturing at the rejected pile. Vanessa grinned. "Exactly why I brought this." She handed him a shopping bag containing a deep emerald shirt he would never have chosen for himself. "Trust me, it's perfect." Minutes later, they arrived at the gallery. Through the windows, Ethan could see a crowd had already gathered. His stomach tightened with anxiety, not just about the social situation, but about seeing Naomi, about the decision he'd made, about everything that might change after tonight. "You're fidgeting," Vanessa observed. "Who exactly is this photographer?" "A friend," Ethan said automatically, then corrected himself. "Actually, I don't know what she is. She's someone who saw me when I thought I was invisible." Vanessa's expression softened. "Well, that sounds like someone worth knowing." Inside, the gallery had been transformed. Photographs lined the walls, some he recognized from their sessions together, others new to him. Each captured moments of human connection and isolation, the visible and invisible boundaries people created. In the center of the main room, a series of screens played looping videos of people in public spaces. Their solitude evident despite the crowd surrounding them, Ethan spotted Naomi across the room, surrounded by admirers. She wore a simple black dress, her usual casual confidence replaced by a poised intensity. When she saw him, her professional smile transformed into something genuine and warm. She excused herself and made her way toward him. "You came," she said, her eyes taking in the emerald shirt with approval, and not a hint of navy in sight. "I keep my promises," he replied, introducing Vanessa, who gave him a knowing look before wandering off to explore the exhibition. "So," Naomi said when they were alone, "did you complete the final challenge? Make one big change?" Ethan nodded, his heart racing. "I quit my job yesterday." Naomi's eyes widened. "You what?" "I resigned, gave my 2 weeks' notice." He smiled at her shock. It turns out 8 years in the same position, doing the same things, was less about stability and more about fear. Fear of what? Failing, not measuring up. All the usual suspects. He shrugged. "But these past weeks with you made me realize I've been hiding in code because it's predictable. If it fails, it's because I made a mistake I can fix. And now Now I've accepted a position with a nonprofit that develops security systems for humanitarian organizations. He met her gaze directly, including those working in former conflict zones. Understanding dawned on her face. Ethan ... I'm not saying. I made this decision for you, he said quickly. I made it for me. But knowing you, understanding what matters to you, it helped me see what might matter to me too. Around them, gallery patrons moved between photographs, commenting on compositions and themes, oblivious to the quiet transformation being acknowledged between two people who had begun as strangers. The residency program, Naomi said after a moment. I turned it down. Now it was Ethan's turn to be surprised. What you said, it was perfect, a way back to the work that matters to you. Oh, that's just it, she replied. Realized I was still running just towards something instead of away. Still avoiding staying in one place long enough to build anything lasting. She gestured to the exhibition around them. This project made me see that maybe I need roots as much as I need purpose. What will you do instead? There's a local journalism initiative starting up documenting community stories. It's focusing on human resilience in everyday life. Her eyes held a quiet certainty. Less dramatic than war photography, but maybe more hopeful. I can do it. From here, the implication of her words settled between them, not a declaration, but a possibility. A door left purposefully open. I have something for you, she said, leading him to a quiet corner of the gallery. There, displayed separately from the others, was a diptych, 2 photographs side by side. The first showed Ethan at Bittersweet Calf, on the day they met, isolated in his corner, face illuminated by his laptop screen, walled off from the world around him. The second, taken weeks later, captured him looking directly at the camera. Naomi, his expression open, engaged. Present the title beneath read, Fortress and Freedom. This is how I see you, Naomi said softly. Both versions are real. Both have value. But only one is truly alive. Ethan studied the images, seeing himself through her eyes. The journey from isolation to connection laid bare for everyone too. See, in another time, this exposure would have terrified him. It felt like recognition. Thank you, he said, for seeing both and for challenging me to see them too. Later that night, as the exhibition wound down and the last patrons departed, Ethan and Naomi walked through the snow-hushed streets. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences, as if they'd known each other for years, instead of weeks. So what happens now? Ethan asked, as they paused beneath a streetlight, snowflakes catching in Naomi's hair like stars. I don't know, she admitted. That's what makes it interesting. Ethan smiled, realizing that for the first time in his adult life, not knowing the future didn't frighten him.
Nice.
I think I can live with interesting. As they continued walking, no destination in mind, their hands found each other, another unplanned moment in a series of unexpected changes that had transformed them both. Behind them, their footprints in the fresh snow marked a path neither could have predicted, leading somewhere new, together.